something. 10 men, 20 men, 30 men. That do was something. 10 men, 20 men, 30 men. Yeah, drink 'em up. Yeah.
You know what it is, man. DJ Thoro, aka Thorozano, Bridge to the Streets. Right now, you're watching the hottest in the streets right here on thisis50.com. We live from One World Studios. Shout out to my man Boy Wonder. You know how we do. Got special guests in the building, man. This is I like to call this guy like he's the author to the streets, man. Anything streets related, he got a book on it. You know what I mean? So if you want to know about street fashion, he got a book on it. You know about your street hustlers, he got a book on it. You want to know about the hairstyle from the 80s, 90s to current, he got a book on it. Introduce yourself.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Troy Reed, the author of the book called I Never Met Alpo, along with the series, Street Star series, 8 different documentaries, along with Sneaker Pawn with my son.
See, did I lie? I didn't lie. So let's just dive right into it. You have this book called I Never Met Alpo.
Yes.
Now a lot of people misunderstand that title. What does that mean, you never met Alpo?
It basically, I came up with that title because I knew Alpo for a total of 16 years before his demise.
Right.
And in that time span, I never got to see this character, Alpo, that people was infatuated with.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So throughout, during the last year, I was seeing like little glimpses of this character.
Right.
But for the most part, my relationship with him was just based off of Albert, was his true core,
right,
or the true person of who he was. And so that's why I named the book I Never Met Alpo. Though the world's infatuated with Alpo,
right,
and they know Alpo, and they know
right,
this character and all the things and the bad things he's done. Me personally, I only knew Albert.
Right. I like to go chronologically,
yes,
and then all over the place. So how did you actually meet Alpo?
Well, I met Alpo when I was, which is in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I met him when I was 17 years old, and he came up to a basketball game where I live at up in Patterson Projects. And when I was there, he like tapped me on the back of my leg with a broomstick, and he wanted me to, he wanted to get this girl's number that I was standing in front of him talking.
He just happened to have a broomstick.
Yeah. Back in the days when you walk around with the, the sticks you play,
right,
stick ball with, stick ball with, right? So he happened to have that in his hand, and he was like, he said, yo, shorty, is that your girl? And I was like, nah. He was like, listen, I give you $100 if you give me her number. So part of me was like, $100? Like, who is this nigga that he would offer me $100 or whatever? And so I was like, that's my man's girl, but I see what I could do. And as soon as he walked away, he went and got in a black convertible 350Z or whatever the number was, but a convertible Z back then, right?
What year was this?
This had to be like, like 90, because he went to jail in 91, so
right,
like 90, 92, between 90 and 92. Right. So as soon as he walked away and got in the car, my man Khalid came over to me and was like, yo, you know who you was talking to, right? And I was like, who? Nah. He was like, yo, that's the kid Alpo. I said, man, get the hell out of here. I got hyped. Like, get the hell out of here. I said, yo, man, listen, I'm trying to get a package. Yo, get that nigga number.
Shit.
So as soon as I tried to send my man Khalid over to him, they was getting in the car, and he was with this kid named Rudy from 145th Street, St. Bernard, and Esplanade Gardens, and they was getting in the car and they drove off, and I said, yo, call Rudy, and he tried to call him. He said, yeah, my man said he'll get with him, as soon as he come back from DC.
Right.
And he wound up getting locked up in DC about 3 or 4 months later.
Right.
So, that was like my first, time I've ever seen him, and then Pop from Black Star.
Shout out to Pop.
Pop from Black Star used to be like, yo, Troy, whatever you do, you got to do a documentary on Alpo. And that's what made me be like, I sought after trying to find Alpo, and I, ran into this kid named Oli through my man PJ.
Right.
And he took me on a visit to go meet him.
Right. So at that point, that's when you got I guess he was obviously comfortable enough for you to come around and interact with him.
What you mean?
Like, you went to go visit him. Like,
yes,
how did he had to allow that? Or
The first thing you got to do is, when somebody's in a federal government, program, and definitely the Federal Witness Protection Program, it's a process to get approved. It's a process to be on a waiting list. You got to wait a little bit. They got to do a background check and all that stuff. So they approved me. They let me in, and I went on a visit to go see him up in Otisville.
Right. Do you remember the first visit?
Oh yeah, the first visit. The first visit was funny because he was, which is in the book.
Right.
He was like behind this glass, this door, but had a window on it. And usually when you go in the feds and you go on the visiting floor, it's like extremely hard, like a whole process to get up there with checking your ID, your fingerprint, this and that.
Right.
his situation was different because it was more like they didn't have to fingerprint you, they didn't have to do none of that. He just was at this glass door and looking through the glass door, and I can see him like he keeps peeking through the glass door, and they just let him look and go, "Is that your guest?" Okay, and then they just let us in. There was no checking you. There was no none of that. They just let you in. You know what I'm saying? It was like a dorm or whatever type of situation.
Right.
And we went in. As soon as we went in, it was like I never was like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Troy Reed. Troy Reed, how you doing? This is Outpool." It was just an instant like, "Yo, what's up, my brother?" And it was just jokes.
Right.
He just started joking and laughing and playing.
And this was your second time seeing him since when he tapped you with the broomstick when you went to go visit.
Well, yeah, I was 17 when I did that. And now I'm a grown man. I'm probably like 25, 26.
Right, and you going. Now, when you did this, were you like, I don't say sworn to secrecy, but because obviously not many people knew you were going to see him. Like, is that something you consciously didn't let anybody know, or you just it was in their business to know? Like,
nah, it was just my job. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, people don't ask you about the details of your job every day. They just know you coming to work.
Right.
And that was, people knew I was probably doing that story, but they don't know the details of that story, and the details that I had to go through and I was going through to get to know him. And it was just my job.
Right. So that's what I mean. It was your whole point to going to see him was because you're documenting his life. You're doing a documentary. You're doing the book. Whereas I'm sure 1,000 media outlets wanted to do the same thing, which they obviously couldn't.
Well, believe it or not,
how did you get access to do that and say CNN or ABC or whatever?
Well, he wasn't going to be able to do no interviews like that in reference to like mainstream media. He was not. He's in a witness protection program. Right. For one. For two, Output was already 14 years into his sentence.
Okay.
Right? And believe it or not, there was nobody going to see him.
Right.
There was no...
I actually believe that. I do. Yeah, I
like
believe
people, he was considered Outpool the rat. And people abandoned him. And he just went into the blitz of silence. You know what I'm saying? So at that time, he was like, you know, once we got going, I went to see him the next time and we got going, he was like, well, why do you want to interview me? Like, why are you seeking me out? Right. And that's when I got to see he had an innocence about him. He had a purity about him. He had a real just innocence of like, yo, what's making you want to come see me, Troy Reed? So, and it was kind of like, my mind, like, you're Outpool, that's why. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But in his mind, it was like, well, you already did the Feds magazine audio. You already did something on me with the Game Over. Like, why are you seeking me out? He was really, really like wondering.
On guard mentally.
Yeah, no, he was really shocked. Like, why are you coming to see me? And there was no, you know, he had girls going to see him. You know, he always kept a girl, but for the most part, there was no guys. Like, people really abandoned him.
Right. Right. Now, as you said before, Outpool, well, you didn't say this, but Outpool was obviously, he was loved and hated for obvious reasons. So I remember a while back there was a video that surfaced of him. Everybody knows about the stories, but with Rich and how Rich died or whatever. But there was an actual video footage of him literally taking people step by step, and that video obviously rubbed people the wrong way to the point where they were like, well, why? How is he still even in Harlem? And why does he think that? Why would he do that? Like, what was the point of that?
Well, that was part of like a redemption video. Right. And when I say redemption video, meaning like we planned to do that video for years. We knew when he touched down, we was going to do that video. Right. We was going to do an interview on him and stuff. And my job as a journalist and a documentary was like, all right, rarely do you get a person who can do 25 years, 24 years, do what he did, come home, and you physically got that person, and they can talk about it. Right. So as a journalist, just from a journalist perspective, my job was like, okay, I have the opportunity to walk him through, step by step, all the destinations where he basically caused havoc or walked through or had fun. So one of the first stops was that interview that we did. Right. And then we was gonna go to his neighborhood because I have the physical person. So why not take this person and walk through it? And it was at the same time the opportunity for him to also face what he did. Right. And walk through and realize what he did. So the thing about that video getting leaked, what people didn't see was yeah, you just saw the gruesome side of him explaining the story,
Right.
but you didn't get to see his apology and his reasoning behind doing what he did and how sorrowful he was about what he did.
Right.
And to the point in that video, which people will see when I release the video in the next month,
Right.
people will get to see finally that he was yelling at me. He was mad at me. Like you know, but I'm a journalist. Now, right at this point, he's the interviewer, he's being interviewed, and I'm the journalist. I got a job to do. So our brotherhood was like, all right, let's put that to the side, and I got a job to do, and you got a job to do.
Right.
So in some of the video that you're going to see is you'll get to see in the van on the way to City Island, he got mad at me and was like, yo, pull over, this is good, this is enough. Like, he didn't want to face that situation. He, you know, I don't know what came over him, but he panicked, you know, believe it or not. And you'll see in that footage where he yelled at me. And then he was like, yo, this is it, little bro, this is good. Why we keep going? And then I'm a journalist. I got my journalist hat on. I pushed the envelope. I wanted him to face what he did. I wanted him to see what he did because he barely get bothered. And I knew as a journalist, oh, this is bothering him. Like, this is triggering an emotion. Right. So as a journalist, I wanted to see how far can I go with triggering the emotion to allow him to face what he did.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's what, but in that, because that video got leaked,
right,
people didn't get to see the whole thing. They
right.
just got to hear the animalistic side of what he did, but they didn't see how sorrowful he was, how
right.
he got mad at me, he yelled at me, he was beyond sorrowful.
Right. Well, that's why I brought that up, because I wanted you to touch on that so people know that there's more footage.
Oh yes.
It just wasn't that.
No, that was 10 minutes.
Yeah, because obviously a lot of people took that as that's distasteful. People, you know, the victims of the family, like that's like ripping a scab off.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? So,
yes.
and anybody in that position, they lost a family member, and then you go see the person do that.
Yes.
That would trigger something too. You know
no,
what I
I totally agree. You know what I'm saying? And right after that's why I made an apology video.
Right.
And on YouTube because to Rich's family and to Alpo, because they didn't get to see the whole interview.
Right.
You know, at least one thing I can't stop somebody from telling their story. It's their story. This is their journey. This is what they did.
Right.
That's my job, to get them to tell their story. So, in their story may be distasteful, and it's distasteful to a number of people.
Right.
So, I totally respect that, and I totally get that. But my job was to push the envelope and get him to tell his story and get him to walk through his journey of his story and tell it as tasteful as I could, you know, sympathetic to whoever it may have affected.
Right. Now in this book, I Never Met Alpo. Does it cover, as far as your relationship with him, does it cover up to his demise? Like the date, like did you? Well, let me just be honest. A lot of people, when Poe came back home, a lot of people were saying, why was he still in Harlem? Like, who's around him telling him it's a good idea to still be in Harlem based on his history? Did you ever have a conversation with him about, yo, you're too visible? Why are you out here like this? Like, why are you doing this?
I mean, that's all in the book. You know, that's
right.
what the whole book is
I'm
about.
helping you sell the book. That's why.
Yeah, all right, my bad.
Because they got to see the book, but
that's
we can still touch. We don't tell everything, but you got to.
No, it's 200 and something pages.
Right.
I don't think I can tell it all.
Right.
But you got to read it. But that's what's in the book. That's our relationship. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm trying. My relationship was with Albert. Albert would never go in Harlem and stay in Harlem and chill and do all that.
Right.
But Alpo would. Alpo loved that. Alpo was a people person.
Right.
Alpo fed off the energy of people and the entertainment of it. So
right.
Alpo had a number of people. We had a whole nucleus of a family from 116th, 117th Street. He had me. He had different women that he dealt with. He had his mother, his sister.
Right.
I mean, his family. He had a whole nucleus of people that was on him, that was riding him, that was telling him, yo, what are you doing? You know, it wasn't just me.
It wasn't just you.
It wasn't just me. So, but ultimately, it wasn't even a fast process. You know, you gotta remember, Alpo came home within the first 6 months. He was already in Harlem.
Right.
People, he was on 125th Street at my store.
Yeah.
So,
no, right.
all right.
Yeah.
You know, so he'd been in Harlem.
Right.
But no one recognized him. People would walk right past him and people who knew him already from the streets would not even notice who he was.
Right.
And he'd be standing right on 125th Street, like literally like 6 months after he came out. So by the time people got to see him, that was already like a year and 2 years later,
right,
before people started seeing him.
Right.
So, but he was moving the right way. He was coming, pop in, say what's up, and get out.
Get out. Now you know what? Speaking of that, I remember one day you called me, and you had Alpo on the phone, and he was like, "Yo, if you get the 850 with the white pipe, and I'm gonna do this or that."
Yeah.
Like, you literally put him on the phone with me, right?
Yeah.
And then it's funny how you said how he pop in, pop out. People didn't recognize him. So one day I'm in Harlem. I won't say where. I'm in Harlem. I'm washing my car. I'm watching the Saab, right? It's like 10:30 at night. I'm the only one out there, right? This guy walk up on me, right? He's like, "You know who I am?" Just like that. So I'm looking. Mind you, it's just me and him outside. 10:30 at night. I'm just wiping the car down. Dude walk up like, "You know who I am?" And I'm looking. I'm like, "Nah." He's like, "Yo, you know Troy, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "It's me, Paul. I was on the phone with you just like that." I'm like, "Oh shit," right? So he was like, "Yo, I want to use the car for a documentary that we're doing." I'm like, "Yeah, all right." So, you know, I'll get with Troy and, you know, make it happen, whatever, right? So he just walks off into the night, right? So like 5 minutes later, he just walked back. He came back. He was like, "Yo, you got a red one too, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right." And he turned around and disappeared into the night. I'm like, "Yo, that's crazy." Like,
he was right
like a
there.
ninja. You know what I mean?
He was right there. It's funny, you know, that you say him doing that. You guys are doing the BBS boys.
Right.
Like, you know, I had so many things lined up for him and trying to get him into, like, even way before y'all, you know when you was talking to him, when you just had your cars.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I used to tell him, you know, because at the time I saw the big picture for what you guys was doing, the BBS boys, what you was doing.
Right.
I told him right then and there, I said, "Yo, Pope, let me make you the spokesperson. Let me connect you and get you behind what they're doing with this BBS boys, because it goes with what you was doing."
Right.
So it was kind of like different business ventures that I was trying to get them into.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So me and that you saying that with the cars.
Right. Now, did you, because you were trying to, I guess, tell him what he probably obviously didn't want to hear, like, at one point y'all had a falling out, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. I mean, we had like two falling outs.
Two falling outs.
Yeah. Which is all in the book, you know, you can read about. But one of the main falling outs was just about him leaving Harlem. That was like probably our last falling out that we had. And it wasn't falling. It's like you arguing with your brother or your sister. You know, you might fall out, but y'all still speak. You walk through the house, she walked through the house or whatever. So it wasn't like, you know, I'm never speaking to you again, or, you know, I'm never dealing with you again. It was like, "Yo, nigga, leave me alone.
Right.
I'm tired of hearing that." You know what I'm saying? So that was our relationship but we text every week. We spoke every day.
Right.
We still was the same, but we had our falling outs.
Right. Now, did you ever get, "Oh, Troy, why are you running around with this rap? Why are you doing this? Why are you supporting this? Why are you pushing this guy?" Did you ever get that? Because you're in the street too. You're a well-known figure, and I don't mean that negatively, but people know who you are. Did you ever get that flack?
Well, I think most people respect what I do,
right,
as a journalist, as a documentary, so they don't really box me into that. One. The people who have kind of said that indirectly, no one's never said that to my face, but the people who did say that indirectly, where it may have gotten back to me or something, you know, they don't really, I respect their opinion. Right. You know what I'm saying? I respect their opinion about how they feel about him. But what I learned early on when I first started doing his story, his documentary, was that the people who knew him, who hustled with him, who was affected by him, they didn't have that outlook.
Right.
Unless like he, you know, somebody who he brought to their demise. I understand that situation. But outside of that, all the hustlers, murder, death, kill hustlers, the biggest hustlers in the world, they didn't have that perspective about him. And they wasn't out in the public letting it be known that how they felt.
Right.
But when you spoke to them in private, it was like, "Yo, you know, he was a good dude.
Right.
You know, he was a different kind of dude. When he went left, but for the most part, I liked him."
Right.
So once I saw that from the people who mattered,
right,
I had a different outlook.
Right.
And then more than anything, he used to ask me the same question. From the day I started to go see him and we started getting closer, he used to always say, "Troy, are you all right with, you know, what's going on out in the world and how people feel about me, or are you okay with that?" But, you know, I was like, listen, the response from the people that matter got love for you.
Right.
So nobody's coming to me. And I said, I doubt if somebody ever see you in person and say, yo, you rat, you snitch, which never happened.
Right.
While he been on the street for 6 years, ain't nobody never walk up to that man and go, man, you's a rat.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
right.
so, like I said, I think people they just kind of respect what I do. I have a job to do.
There was another video that surfaced where he was basically, I ain't gonna say taunting, but he was almost like daring someone to say what you just said. Like, people say I'm a rat, but nobody says it to my face. Nobody will come out. He was damn near literally daring someone to do it. With that being said, do you think he was, I don't say asking for his demise, or do you think he just was tired? He just didn't care if he lived or died anymore?
Yeah, he was getting frustrated at that point. That was Alpo. See, that's the person that I would be arguing with. That's the person that I'm arguing with.
Right.
Because Alpo now is trying to defend Alpo.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And you can't defend Alpo. And I always would tell him, you can't defend 14 murders, big bro. You can't defend that.
You told him that
all the time.
Right.
You can't defend 14 murders, and you can't defend being a government informant. You can't defend that. Don't try to. You know what I'm saying? So,
that's real shit.
And with that being said, you know, that's where we would kind of clash.
Right.
And at first he got it, he understood that. But once Alpo started morphing back into character, he didn't want to hear that. It was like, yeah, whatever, I'm walking in my truth, and it's what it is, and if don't say nothing about me. He had that mentality. He was running down on different people in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I diffuse at least 3 situations that I know he was trying to get at those people.
Right.
Like little bro, get that number from me. Or little bro, yo, I just might just be talking and say, yeah, I just bumped into such and such. He'd be like, where at? And then he get in his feelings that I don't tell him where at or I tell him anything. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not my position.
Right.
So that was Alpo at that point. And he was frustrated and he was trying to defend, you know, which he didn't understand the power of social media as well.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, people can hide behind a device and say whatever they want. And this noise, you gotta let it be. He was reacting to that noise. And,
right.
and it's because he's a true gangster.
Right.
That's just, I don't care what somebody say about government, rat, this and that. He was a gangster's gangster. He was a true gangster.
Right.
So he wasn't used to the internet gangsters and the social media gangsters and the text gangsters. He wasn't used to that.
Right.
So those kids had him beat by a long shot.
Right. So ultimately, with this book, what was your what's your goal, or in terms of the outcome, or what are you looking for this book to do? Like,
I mean, the book
what was the purpose for you?
The purpose was just that I have all of this information. I had this amazing relationship for 16 years with Alpo, and when he died, I saw the celebration for his death. I saw, you know, the people saying what they were saying about him, and I get it. Everybody has that opinion, and I respect it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, part of me was like, man, if they just knew what I knew. So that was where it was like, you know what? Let me write this book, and let me just throw it in the air, and whoever they come across and they get it. Because I knew Albert, and in this book, I wanted to give people the opportunity to know, which he never did. He never let no man see no weakness about him. He ain't gonna let you see no weakness about him. I got to see that weakness, and I was always like, big bro, if you let people see this, they probably would have a different outlook about you. But that was never gonna happen. He was a 24-hour gangster. He wasn't taking his foot off the gas with that, and it was what it was. So, you know, I felt like, well, I know he wasn't gonna do it. Well, let me take this opportunity now to, to humanize him and show people who he really was from his core.
Right. Wow. Do you remember where you were when you found out he got killed?
Yeah, I was laying down, I was asleep, and I like got startled with, my wife. She was like, yo, they killed Alpo, and I was like, what? And it was like, what are you talking about? And then I got up, I went, laid back down, but I got right back up again, and she tapped me again. It was like, they killed Alpo, and I was like, man, what do you mean? And I put the rest in the book. You know what I'm saying? I put the rest in the book because it was, it shook me.
It shook you.
Yeah. I, not to the point that I couldn't see that coming, but it was just like, you let them win.
Right.
You let them win.
Do you remember the last conversation you guys had? What was the last thing? Do you remember the last thing you said to Alpo? Whatever that may have been.
Oh, we was joking. Mm-hmm. We was joking on the phone. Like, he would call me. We wasn't speaking that much, like the last two or 3 months. But then, like, out of nowhere, which I put in the book, we spoke like the last month last couple of weeks before he died, we were speaking every day. So me, him, my homegirl Charlotte, and our other homegirl, we used to all be on the phone together. He would three-way everybody. So every day we'd be three-waying each other.
Right.
And we'd just be joking. And we did that once a day, every day, probably the last week before he died. So, you know, it was just jokes. He loved joking around. He loved playing.
Right.
So while we was all on the phone, it just, you know, that was the last time. And we had one conversation that Thursday before, I think that Sunday. And I can hear it in him. He was like, "Little bro, you know it's a good thing you went to Cali, man." He used to call California Gilligan's Island. He's like, "Man, I'm not going to no goddamn Gilligan's Island." You know, he said what he used to call it.
Right.
And he finally said to me, he said, "Little bro," he said, "you know, that was a good thing you left." Because I think his spirit was a little broken about New York and his anticipation of what he thought New York was going to be for him.
Right.
And this was one of the second times I ever heard him sound a little downcast, where it was like, you know, "Little bro, you know, call me back." And I was like, "Yo, I gotta go. I'm gonna hit you right back." He's like, "No, man, make sure you call me back. Make sure you call me back." And I never called him back.
Never called him back.
Yeah.
Because from my understanding, he had a whole new identity. He was like, forgot the name, but he was supposed to be a Maine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're in witness protection, and you can school me in this because I have no idea, aren't you supposed to abide by, if you're supposed to be in Maine, you keep your ass in Maine, you're not supposed to be where you're not supposed to be. How does that work?
Poe was so charismatic that even the government, the U.S. Marshals, was giving him second chances. They wanted success for him. They wanted him to be successful as a human being. Albert.
Right.
They wanted Albert to be successful because this is how of a magnet and as charismatic he was. So he'd been breaking all the rules for some time. And it got to the point where it was like, we're going to get in trouble by keep trying to give you passes. So they had to like just be like, "Yo, we gotta put you out of this program." So he was breaking all the rules once he was warming up. He was warming up slowly, and he started like just not caring. And he got to the point where one day he convinced me. He convinced me to be like, well, probably, you know, if you want to check out, then go ahead. But I would stay on him about checking out. He'd been wanting to check out that program a year before.
Right.
But I would stay on him. And then finally got to the point where it was like, you know, he was very convincing, and he was very, you know, he just started to do him. He wanted to do him.
Right.
And he had the eye of the tiger for Harlem. And I don't know why. Nobody can fathom like why.
Right.
What was it about Harlem that you had to be there, you had to go there, and none of us that's close to him can understand
right.
that.
You think it's a thing where it's just, it was just who he was? That's all he knew?
It's not all he knew, because that's what I'm saying. Alpo wasn't your regular street dude that just switched gears.
Right.
Alpo was well-rounded.
Right.
Like I told you, from the U.S. Marshals down to a white person, down to a dude in the hood, down to a gangster and a killer. He had a conversation for everything and everybody.
Right.
He was very advanced in his understanding and his knowledge, wisdom, and understanding.
Right.
So I can't make that excuse for him to say, "Oh, this is all he knew." It's not.
It's not all he knew. Right.
That's not all he's not that person that
Right.
you can say that about.
Right.
He just had a thing where some type of feeling came to him where he wanted them 80s back. He wanted that
attention.
He wanted not the attention, because he got attention.
Right.
Once you knew who he was, it was over. Once somebody got a glimpse of him, it was over. So he got that, but it was just this thing where he wanted to relive that moment.
Right.
That moment. He's something about that moment he was trying to get back. When it was like, dude, there's a bigger moment over here that you're about to get. So you got to go through the rigorous road because everybody goes through it.
Right.
But it's a bigger moment over here.
Right. So if you could say anything to Alpo right now, like you got to be one word, or what would you say to him?
I would just mad at him. I would just be like, yo, you know, want to fight him, because it would just be like, big bro, like, you let these niggas win. You let them win, not niggas. I don't mean to say niggas, but you let everything that was stacked up against you win.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So you had a fresh start, and you had the perfect opportunity.
Right.
And you was the perfect situation, and the world needed somebody like you, good or bad. They needed somebody like you because you brought to the table, you know, a lot.
Right.
And people could learn even from your bad. They could still learn. And if you would have went on to do good with your bad, they would have learned even more. So that's just mad at him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And I think that's why a lot of people maybe celebrated his death, that hated him, because they didn't see the side of him publicly saying, "Damn, I shouldn't have done that. I fucked up." Like there's no footage of that. They just see him defending.
Yes.
And like you said, you
Yes.
told him you can't defend 14 murders. You can't defend this type of behavior. Like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
And that's why people hated him.
Yeah. And I have so much footage and recordings of him where his guard is down when we talking.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And he's like, you know, I mean, I didn't catch it. You know, at that time, I wasn't thinking like he would die. And I wasn't thinking like, you know, so I didn't catch a lot of moments where I could have. Like, because, you know, he just like, all right, cut the camera on, do what you want. So I could have, like, recorded him or cut the camera on, but, you know, because we was just like real brothers, there was no need to. This was just our moments.
Right.
But if, looking back, hindsight now, if I would have cut the camera on 20 different occasions, because you would have saw who he truly is.
Right.
You would have got a glimpse on camera who he truly was. Right. And like I said, Alpo would always push Albert to the back.
Right.
When it came to certain scenarios. If it came to a girl, Albert's in the front.
Right.
If it was a girl or something, Albert stepped right up. Right. But if it came to them streets and a certain demeanor, Albert goes to the back and Alpo's in the forefront, and that's why the average person wouldn't get to see.
Wouldn't get to see that.
You know, those characteristics about him.
Now, most good books make good movies. Most movies make good books. Is there going to be a movie, I Never Met Alpo? Where are we at with that?
Oh yeah, right now, as soon as I finish this, what I'm doing with the book, you know, I'm gonna get right into the script because, you know, I want to show people when I write the script the whole journey of street stars. Right. You know, Alpo is a subject of street stars, but there's so many amazing stories of relationships that I had with street stars, along with just even how I formed street stars from where I come from and how I even came up with the idea. And more than anything is to show the journey of like how the rigorous road that I had to go through of building 800 stores across the country, along with knocking down corporate doors to get a deal in Warner Brothers, and then watching street stars morph into now you got the First 48, you got the History Channel with Gangland.
Right.
When I first started, there was what was considered urban was Minister Society and Boys in the Hood.
Boys in the Hood.
That was it.
Right.
There was no street culture. Now you have black media. Now you have the First 48. Now you got Gangland. Now you had American Gangster.
Right.
You know, and all of that, you know, it morphed from street stars.
Right.
And it was a hard road where corporate America for years had closed the doors on me. Like, nobody's into that niche stuff. Right. No, now it's the way we do things.
It's the way we do things, right. Also, before we go, you got a lot of paraphernalia, fashion paraphernalia. You have the original Louis Vuitton coat that made or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you still have that coat, or? No,
I sent it back to him a few months before he died. Because I don't know what he had going on, but he was like, "Little bro, I need that jacket." So, you know, I just sent it back to him. Right. Gave it back to him. I don't know what he did with it. I think his son or somebody may have it. Okay. But everything that he ever had, I always held. You know what I'm saying? But he can just here's the key to the house and go get it. Right. So that's the relationship we had.
Right. Now, before we go, I Never Met Alpo. You did a movie because obviously you're gonna make it happen. Who's gonna play Alpo?
Oh man. There's a couple of good characters to play Alpo. It's
who would you like to play Alpo?
I don't know the actors by their names, so I can't.
Well, what did they play? And just if you can remember that, or just who? Just say that. Just who? What type of person would play Alpo? Who are you looking for to play Alpo?
You know who I would think would be dope as Alpo? Dave East.
Dave East?
I think Dave East would be dope as Alpo. I think this other kid from Grownish. Okay. He got the ponytail. I think he would be good as Alpo. Right. You know, I just think somebody charismatic, nice looking kid, you know what I'm saying? You know, charismatic, that can come charismatic off of camera. Because he wasn't that rah-rah. You know, I mean, Cameron was ultimate greatest of all time.
I think everybody's typecasted Cam. Cam was Al Capone.
Yeah, he's just like Al Capone. He's like the Tony Montana for Alpo.
Yeah.
So I get that. But, you know, Alpo wasn't in his movie, and with anything with what I'm doing, would show the charismatic person. Right. That thug life, that gangster was there, but that gangster was probably 20% of him. Right. 80% of him was this charismatic person.
Obviously, you're a good actor, but do you think it almost has to be somebody from Harlem that could only pull it out?
Nah, the world is big today. You know, it's big and it's broad. And then on top of that, you know, you got to sell seats. Right. So that's going to be based off of the talent you could bring in. Right. And stuff. You know, you got to remember New York is good, but New York now, because of social media, New York is in every city and every state now. Right. That's just the truth of the matter.
Well, the internet made every place one city.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's one big forbidden apple now.
You don't even know where nobody's from no more, based on how they dress.
Yes.
Everybody's dressed
the same. You know, the sneaker game. All that's in the same mall.
Which you contributed to that, sneaker pawn. You know what I mean? Yes. And I want to commend you on that, man. Like, you and your son did something special, man. You opened up the first pawn shop for sneakers. Like, like literally, that's all. It was based on that, and it was literally called Sneaker Pawn. When Euro went on all these talk shows, like, I definitely want to congratulate you on that, because you took your 16-year-old son at the time, and made him turn him into a businessman. Yes. And most, as a black father, we don't really educate our kids to ownership. Right. We teach them to be consumers instead of owners. Right. So why was it important for you to open up that business at that time?
It wasn't important. I was selling marijuana. I was hustling. I was growing marijuana in grow houses and doing what I was doing. And one day, my son, he had took a ride with me to my house in Atlanta, and we driving on the highway. He was like, "Dad, can I stop at the mall and get some sneakers?" I was like, "Ah, yeah." And when we went in the mall, they had cool gray 11s or some cool gray 9s.
Okay, 9s.
They had those in the mall, I think. And he was like, he bought a pair. He's like, "Yo, can I buy an extra pair to sell to my friend?" And I was like, "All right, that's a hustle mentality, bet." But then something was like, "I'll do one better." I said, "How many pairs you got in the back?" They was like, "Well, we got about like 20 pairs. Let me get them." So I bought all 20 pairs, threw them in the truck, and he was like ecstatic. He was like happy. And we took them. We got down to Atlanta, back a little bit down Savannah and Atlanta down that way, and we went to another mall and I bought else. I've spent like $10,000 to $15,000. I filled my van up for sneakers for him, because I was just thinking, yo, we'll sell sneakers. So when I did that, we got back home. A couple of days later, he sold all of those sneakers. Right. Him and my daughter sold those sneakers in less than like a week or 2 weeks. Right. And I was like, hold up. This is better than hustling. Right. You know what I'm saying? From my perspective. But then what more so caught me was the fact that I saw multicultural kids online, black, Chinese, white, at the malls. And that's where I was like, oh, hold on. This is bigger than I think. And I told them, don't tell nobody. And when we got back to New York, I just put a business plan together. I knew what to do. I put a business plan together, and I put it together. And I just started really getting to see. And then I was like, why are we standing on the sneaker lines? Why don't you just get your own store? And that's when, I happened to have a brownstone in Harlem, and we set shop up. But it was pretty much it was just, that was just me landing on a good idea. It was genius
because you made him the face of the store,
Well, it was his hobby. It was what he did. He showed it to me. I didn't show it to him. I didn't know nothing about sneakers. So, I was actually about to ask one or two other people. I asked the kid Mayor. I asked one or two other people I knew real well, because I felt like they was more advanced in the sneaker world. Right. But then reality was, my son is the one who showed me the idea and told me the idea and put me on. So it was like, yo, do you? And that was the perfect choice to make.
Right. All right. So shout out to Chase too, man.
Yeah.
Chase like 6'11" now.
Yeah. Chase
like literally
man
he's tall.
Yeah, he tall.
He was like 17. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
He's mad tall. So listen, before we get out of here, man, how can people follow you? How can they get this book? More importantly, where is it available at? I know it's on Amazon.
Yes, the book is on Amazon.com, but more so this week here coming up, you'll be able to get it on Street Star Streaming. Along with at the end of the month, you'll be able to. I'm going to open up the archives. They're going to be called Outpo Archives. And you can go in there and watch 4 hours of footage on just Outpo. All of our interviews, raw footage. If you don't want to hear certain things, don't come in there. Don't subscribe, don't come in the room, because I'm leaving it raw, and he's just gonna talk about everything he's ever done, all of our interviews, all of his audio. And people was asking me to put in a documentary for him, but I kind of did a documentary on him already, and I didn't want to do another documentary. I said, let me just open up his interviews so people just go in there and watch him.
Right.
And you know, you just pay, subscribe to go in there and watch him. And then you can get the book on Amazon.com. You can also get the book on Street Star Streaming, and follow Troy Reed Official at Troy Reed Official on Instagram, along with Street Star Streaming on Instagram. And this way you can stay informed. So once I post everything up, it's a go.
Right. Now, anything else after this book that you have planned in general, like business-wise? What do we have? What's the next business venture?
You know, business-wise, as far as what I'm doing is I'm working on a project out in California called Black Malibu. So it's a clothing line. It's about the history, a lot of history of Malibu in California. So, you know, that'll be my next project that I'm doing.
Right. All right. So before we get out of here, anything else you want to speak on, chop it up about that we didn't touch on?
No, you niggas better get an air conditioner. I'm burning up inside of this joint. I don't know what's happening inside of this joint.
We keeping that. It's hot up here, baby. You know, it's the heat. We spitting heat right now. You know what I mean? That's what it is, man. So once again, I go by the name of DJ Thoro. Let them know the name.
My name is Troy Reed, Street Star Streaming, Troy Reed Official.
Exactly. And like always, when you see us, one knee us. That means pay respects. We out.
10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I'm on something.